Okay, you've already learned that designing new event formats is rather not a classical event management issue yet. It is more about local expertise, focus on co-creation and collaboration, and a little bit of process design. For some of you, everything might still sound a little bit too theoretical. And therefore, let me share some field-proven formats and development stories in shortcuts. But first, a little preface. In most cases, gaining knowledge about the local potential seems to be quite easy. And so is ideation. In some places, people even team up with their sister cities and try to compare interests, potentials and needs and develop formats together. But sometimes scouting and/or ideation is a very difficult thing. And then it's useful to make a virtue of necessity. Why not hosting a local or bilateral workshop to get insights, ideas and inspirations? Why not organizing an ideation workshop, a thinkathon or a bar camp? This creates participation and ownership from the very first moment. And most of the time, outcomes from individual or group-based scouting and ideation processes are stunning. Especially when twinning experienced people update their self-conception with a curious seismographical scouting mindset and expand their role to a so-called node in the network who's eager and ready to connect and onboard people and ideas. But let's have a look at some formats now. First, let's start with the handy one-time events. Have you ever heard about social bars? A couple of years ago, we went to a city and we realized that they were having a thing called social bars. Social bars are events that bring together web activists, social entrepreneurs, NGOs and volunteers, politicians, as well as companies with social responsibility. And they pitch and exchange innovations and perspectives in a very structured way. And then there is a huge networking session. And as we were asking, hey, can you imagine to contribute to a town twinning association? Everyone was like, oh no, town twinning, no, I don't feel very ready to do so. But when we were asking, hey, is there something in your city which could go bilateral in some case? They said, yeah, of course, we have this nice social bar thingy here in our city that would be perfect to team up with other guys from other countries and other cities. And so the idea was born to say, okay, can we create a bilateral social bar? Yes, we can, of course. And so did we with FuckUp-Nights. Do you know these nightlife events where people share their failures and stories of how they overcome difficult times? These so-called FuckUp-Nights are a very famous format in many, many cities. And it was the same thing. We were asking people, hey, can you imagine to contribute to town twinning activities or even support a town twinning association? And they were like, oh no, not yet, but thanks for asking, very kind, very kind. But as we were asking, hey, is there something going on in any nightlife event format that you can imagine to push beyond the local level, go even bilateral? They said, yeah, of course, we have this fuck-up night. And we decided to say, okay, let's do a bilateral one. Why not teaming up with guys and stories from our sister city? Same with ScienceSlams, where people from different universities come up on stage, having a slam by pitching their research topics to a nightlife audience in a club. And we can easily expand it to a town twinning activity by inviting researchers and scientists from universities in the respected twinning cities. And it's the same with another example called upcycling camps. We were asking a local sustainability initiative if they can imagine to support town twinning activities. And of course you can imagine like, well, we are really busy with our stuff here and we want to change here things locally. So it's not our perspective to go abroad with this idea. But as we said, hey, is there any activity you can imagine people would enjoy in another city or even in another country? They said, yeah, of course. We do on a regular basis upcycling camps where people meet and they create upcycling ideas together and they work together, and at the end of the day, everyone goes home with new ideas and products. And we said, okay, let's take it to our partner city. Great. And so did we as well with the hackathon, where coders and web activists and IT freaks meet to do things for 1, 2, or 3 days to come out with a special product or a function. And we asked them, hey, can you imagine to contribute something to town twinning activities? And well, we are local activists trying to engage people here. But then they said, well, we just created a blog aggregator for our city, where every blog from people living in our city are collected. And we present them in an automatical way. We said, hey, that would be great. Can you teach people from twinning cities how to do that? Can we even set up a joint blog aggregator? Yeah, we are now right in the process. There are many, many other examples. For instance, Story Cafés. They say, hey, do you have a format where people can interact and get in touch? You can say, yeah, of course. There's a thing called Story Cafés, where people tell stories from their past. And people get easily in touch to talk about politics, about how history changed their lives, how politics changed, how social circumstances changed. And he said, well, it would be perfect to go bilateral, right? And we did it. I guess you know all these sustainable development goals discourses, like the 17 SDGs provided by the United Nations, everyone tries to focus on a local level. And we said, well, how can we integrate SDGs in event formats? Because we know it's, of course, already in formal cooperation settings, a huge topic. But how can we integrate it into event formats? And we said, okay, it's quite difficult, but maybe we can find local initiatives. And it was the same with the upcycling thing. We asked, I said, we don't know if we really should go into international level with our idea. But then we asked, hey, is there something that you have in your city which might have a counterpart somewhere else in the world or in special cities? They said, yeah, of course, we have this Transition Town initiative in our town. That's a global movement. Let's see if there's an initiative or a group in the respected cities. And of course, it was. So we had the chance to say, cool, can we do and create some regular meetups between transition town groups? Yes, we can. We did the same with culture clubs, folk nights, business Webtalks, with Videoart Screenings, with local film artists, meeting online, screening online, and stuff like that. So there's a bunch of one-time events which easily can be transferred, adapted, or copied. Now let's have a look at concepts with longer activities or processes. Some of you are active on Instagram or TikTok, right? Then you might know these ongoing dance challenges and competitions which regularly arouse, come and go, new ones pop up, and they have loads of impact because loads of people try to copy it, try to dance, for instance, or contribute in some way. And there's one thing which could be easily set up. Let's create a local twinning dance challenge on TikTok. People can contribute, can put their own videos online, and at some point there will be a live session where the best ones will be screened. Easy one. There's another thing we tried out. We set up a so-called Show Me What You've Got session. For this live session, we ask users from twinning cities to create videos, short ones, about interesting places, artists, about local culture, or insights from their everyday life. And we ask them to share these short videos with us. And then we scheduled a screening and had discussion rounds with people from the other city. And for the first time, people say, hey, I was once part of a study trip to our twinning city, but now I got insights. That was awesome. So we continue with inviting people from different cities to take part in the Show Me What You've Got challenge. Deriving from that idea, we also created citizen-generated artwalks. We asked people, hey, can you show us around in your local museum? I said, well, why not? We can do it. And they, again, produced little smartphone videos, and we shared them, collected them, set up an online event, and had an intensive discussion about arts and museums and situations in different cities. Same is true for live cooking events. We all know local cuisines, but to be honest, I know not much about local cuisine in the twinning cities from my hometown. So we said, okay, we can tackle this. We can set up a bunch of live cooking events online. People can download their shopping lists, and then people from each city will teach other people to cook local cuisine. And we even had people that suggested, hey, could we offer a guided lost places tour in our city? And we were like, okay, that's a bit strange, but quite interesting. And they said, yeah, in our city we have so many interesting places, houses, and lost places. It would be interesting to share some insights and to give some impressions how it looks like at these places. We said, okay, why not? Maybe we find counterparts in your twinning cities. And you can move on from citizen projects onto more business-related projects. For instance, you can set up a process where you exchange startups and residents. So startups, designated startups, selected startups, go for a certain amount of time to the other city and vice versa. And at both sides, the foreign startups have the chance to dive into the market, to expand their networks, and to have some sort of event combined with this idea. We host pitching nights in both cities. You can also do it with co-working spaces. So some professions like to travel a lot, so why not asking one local co-working space to team up with a co-working space in the twinning city to say, hey, can we make an exchange deal so that it becomes easier for co-workers from City A to spend some time and work in City B? Easy one. We also had the idea to say, hey, is there any chance to have ongoing discussions between people from both cities? Wouldn't it be cool if we create a twinning podcast? We said, okay, well, why not? Let's see what we can do. And then there was a team finding topics, connecting online, discussing things online, and said, okay, now we have a variety of topics. Let's find talk guests and speakers, and we can do a bilateral podcast. Let's try to publish once a month. And they started. So now there is a bilateral twinning podcast. Good thing to copy. There's also a crazy thing that's very common in the United States and in some regions of Europe, that a city reads the same book. And we had a bunch of guys who said, well, you can take it to bilateral stages. Let's announce that CDA and CDB is going to read the same book in the next 2 weeks from now on. And in 2 weeks, we will have an online or offline event to discuss the book. And maybe it's a book with a local author. So maybe there's a chance that to this online or offline event, we can invite the author, him or herself. Works pretty well. And of course, there are formats which are trying to focus on the architecture or topography of a city. And I'm talking about the social topography. And there is a movement called Karte von Morgen, Map of Tomorrow. And their slogan is everything good on one map. And they try to figure out every social entrepreneur, every green initiative, everything. And they put it on an online map. So they go to a certain city, they create a map, then it's published and available online for everyone. And this is an interesting thing because in the last 2 years, the guys from Karte von Morgen team up with people in other countries, in other cities. So there's now the chance that joint teams from twinning cities can co-create maps for tomorrow together for each city. And of course, we have, like all these ideas, dealing with language, virtual language tandems, which try to overcome the language barrier by connecting citizens from both cities and from time to time offering offline or online happenings just to bring people together and create stronger bindings. So you can imagine I could go on for hours just to share small or big ideas of what people can do once they realize that focusing on the resources and ideas in one's own city is the best source to create bilateral projects from. And my question to you is, what format and activities did you already try out in your city?